Da-dun, da-dun, da-dun.
Okay, you know how you know my computer is nothing? Look at these
Mm.
umcheles on my screen. Y'all are so clear.
And we're on.
Oh, okay.
All right. Oh my
You
God. Okay.
moderate.
So let's be serious people for once in our lives. Good evening, Lydia and Oprah. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you guys feeling? How are you guys feel? This is where
Okay.
you respond. It's a Q&A,
Yeah,
guys.
I'm feeling okay. I'm feeling great.
Oprah
Yeah,
Okwaje.
yeah, I'm doing good. I'm curious about what people think. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. About
I
our
was
feelings.
watching there were a lot of emojis, there were a lot of feelings, and we will definitely let people know. Oh, I think Achiro, yay! Hi,
Achiro!
Achiro! Welcome, 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 welcome. Can you hear us? Can you see us? We're very enthusiastic. You have beat social media tax. You have made it. Achiro, can you hear us? Achiro, hello. Okay, Achiro, wave if you can hear us. Not you, Lydia. Achiro.
Oh, yeah,
Hi,
I'm
Achiro, can you
waving.
hear us? Okay. Hopefully Achiro can hear us or will hear us at some stage. In the interest of time, I think I'll move things along. Thank you to everybody who's watching this conversation live and in the future. Thank you so much. We have just seen the Surrogate, Millet, and the Better Option by this fantastic trio of filmmakers. And I am very excited to have the opportunity to talk to you about your work. My name is Wanjeri Gakuru. I am a filmmaker and I'm a member of RFS, Rogue Film Society. And we've had the great pleasure of collaborating with Manyata Screenings to show all the films. To moderate rather all the films in this particular program. So I'm really, really honored to be doing this because two of the members of RFS have their work screening tonight, Lydia and Oprah. So proud of you guys. And Achiro, maybe you can cross the floor and join us and be a member of RFS. But so let's begin. So one of the things that I really love about all your films is that they do not shy away from really, really harsh realities and harsh topics. Achiro looks at the idea of a queer couple wanting a child and going about a really cunning way of achieving this. Whether they achieve it or not is unknown because the ending is kind of ambiguous. We don't know what happens. But all in all, we learn something really important. Lydia, in your film, we tackle religion and essentially we look into a cult. And we also understand a mother-daughter relationship in a way that we haven't seen in a while. Oprah, you have two cheating partners, which is hilarious because they say women don't cheat. So it's really interesting that the power dynamic is very interesting between the two of them, and they're all trying to achieve some kind of shifting of power, and a lot of them are employing the era of omission. People are hiding things and some people are believing half truths. So that's kind of the theme that we saw was kind of running through all your films. So let's begin and dive into the characters. So tell me, I'm really, really curious about how each of you feel your lead characters, like at what point did they reach that was like the point of no return as they journeyed, the point that where something happened and there was no going back. Lydia, maybe you can start with Kaje and Violet.
Um, I think for KJ, okay, I think KJ being a child is a bit twofold, where at first she doesn't have agency. So first she has to be in this space with her mother. And of course, the way it's couched is you've done something wrong and this is punishment. And so she must accept. But in terms of trying to save her mother, I think I think the minute her mother collapses and she sees that, the toll of not having food is what the toll of not having food is doing to her mother, and she might lose her to the cult forever, not just mentally but physically as well. I think that's the moment for her she decides that I really do have to prove that that the pastor is eating more than millet, basically, to save my mom.
True. Yeah, and it was quite jarring because it was so hilarious because the way the scene was done, because we know that whole thing of like fire, fire, well, fire upon the place, but fire, fire, Holy Spirit, fire, and everybody falls, and she's like, and it's a really strong moment of triumph for her. And then there's this shift, the mother collapses, and nobody even gets up to assist, and really I think she realizes that this is a dangerous place for her mother. So that's very interesting to hear. That is the point. For you, Oprah, what is a moment for your character where when that moment happened, when they either do something or they realize something, like there was no turning back, like they were set on their path?
I think from like it always feels like there were two moments, but maybe one is stronger than the other. So the first moment was her picking her boyfriend's phone and scrolling through it. Like I think that was one. And then the second, like, or maybe the strongest one, is when she actually read, the text that his side chick had sent. And like her reading that and going through that, I think for her it was almost like oh wait, but now that you asked the question. But yeah, so I think,
Another point has emerged.
yeah, exactly. Because actually, when I think about it, maybe the point of no return is in the end when she actually, decided not to address it or not to raise it, or like when she decided, I'm going to
Yeah.
hide the fact that I know all this happened. So I think actually most likely in the end.
Yeah, that's really interesting because another thing that I felt was running through all your films, and we hope Achiro will join us and we can, hear her and from her side of things. But there's a great sense of shame in all the characters' lives. Maybe less so with in your film Oprah, because your character feels to be in a very powerful position. She's got great agency. She takes the phone. I think she must have suspected something. She finds something, and in the end, she decides not to do something. But do you feel like there's an element of shame, maybe in the fact that her boyfriend is cheating on her and she feels some type of way? But it's also interesting because she's cheating on him. So does shame play any role in your character's life?
Um, it's really hard to say because I think that also depends on how she's processed it. And I don't think I thought too much into how she dealt with it. I just saw it as she finds this thing, like she finds out the boyfriend is cheating on her. It's like I think, yeah, actually when you talk about it, I think yes, shame plays into it because one of the reasons why raise she doesn't raise the question, or she doesn't kind of like attacking it, why are you
Confront
cheating
it.
on me or whatever, is because actually I'm guilty of doing the same. And so even if I'm going to do it, I'm going to try and make sure that I still have to be very careful so that it doesn't blow back on me, you know. So I think yes, there's an element of shame involved in how she doesn't, in why she doesn't kind of confront him about
Confront it.
what.
Yeah, I don't. Well, shame plays a big role in Violet and Kaji's relationship. At some stage, Violet talks about the fact that she's not been drinking for 6 months. The pastor puts it very crudely that also she was promiscuous, or she was having her fun. But it feels that Violet knows that this cult, this is a cult. She knows it's a cult. She knows that it's a whole hoax. It feels to be like that, but she doesn't want to confront that. She'd rather just, hide behind, or not hide, hide, but also kind of use the cult and the pastor to kind of heal her wounds. Do you feel that, first of all, where does that shame come from? And does it make sense that she's using the church in that particular way?
I think the shame does come from those things. An alcoholic, having been promiscuous in the past, and I also felt like for Violet, if this was a feature film, send money for a feature film. I'm joking, but if this was a feature film,
Are you?
like even the reasons for being an alcoholic and being promiscuous had a larger thing. There were larger issues where at one point in time for Violet, this was a place, drinking, promiscuity was a place where she found solace for her pain or her burdens. And then coming to this church, this becomes that place. It's kind of like you drop one addictive thing and then pick up
Yes.
another because you're not dealing with the issue. And I think like her refusing to see or acting like she doesn't know or acting like she can't see, I feel like it's that thing of this was a safe space. Like this is maybe the only thing that she had that was holding it together. And I think she does tell Kaji at some point when they confront the issue of why Kaji fought and the issue of violence past a bit, she says that, I've changed and you will never be like that. So for her, it's like this thing, this place and the rituals that we're having are an important are basically the space that I am using to heal and to be safe and to keep me from going back to things that have hurt me and going back to um basically going astray in quotes. So okay, you can cut me short when I go too long. But
No, it's okay because I was just gonna have a follow-up question to that. So don't worry, it's a really good place to insert. One of the most heartbreaking things is when Kade tells her mother, I'll protect you. It was quite heartbreaking because one, I mean, she'd been separated from her mother for a long time, and secondly, she knew that her mother was in pain and she was willing to do anything for her. Can you talk about that, and then we'll kind of go into the writing process, but like that moment and what it revealed about the dynamic between the two of them, and maybe even like the backstory that we haven't seen.
I think in the situation for Kaje at that time, and maybe even if maybe even like for Kaje for a very long time, when you do have someone who is in a lot of pain, whether it's in terms of alcoholism, whether it's in terms of like maybe a larger mental health issue leading to that, or trauma or anything, I think that their dynamic for a very long time, for like, if I could imagine, because this part of the story was not written, where the child is the parent. And I think even in that moment at the end, that's what happened. Kaje becomes the parent, the one who will protect you, the one who will keep you safe. And then also, I don't know, like, I feel like, again, it also kind of showed maybe Violet's lack of agency in her own life, where you moved from one addictive thing to this
Into
church,
another.
and then your child is saying, I am aware that you feel that you're unable to take care of yourself, and I am willing to take that burden
Yeah.
once you leave this place to do that for you.
Yeah. It's funny because I actually wanted to ask this a little bit later, but I feel like this is the right point to ask. And I'll start with Oprah and then I'll come back to you, Lydia. What are the alternative endings of this film? If you could tell us, like the ones that you imagined in your mind. And then, if maybe that's a difficult one, where do you think your characters are now? Now that the film is over and like, this life is over, where do you think they are now? Like, are these people still together? Are they still dating? Are they in an open relationship? Like, what is, what happened to them? Oprah. I'm curious.
That's a really hard question. Um,
You can guess.
the the alternate endings I've thought of, because the alternate ending. No, I can't say endings. I can rather maybe think of where they are now. I think
Mm,
so. Where they are now, it could be one of two things: either they're still together,
mm,
um, and maybe both have kind of seen the need. Okay, also maybe because now it's been quite a while. So they've been
yeah.
together for a long
But now
time.
there's
So
also Corona, so they're stuck together in like their
both of us stick
their
together.
fictive universe.
Yes, I think either they kind of like gone like either they're together and they've
Mm,
kept the secrets and they've each in their own ways decided to be faithful to each other,
mm,
but none of them is ever going to share, like what like the Mpangwa. That each of them had a Mpangwa kind of situation. Either
mm.
that or they just broke up. But I honestly don't think that any of them would ever share that they were each having an affair unless the other person brought it
Okay, I have a theory about why that's the case, so we'll come back to that. Achiro, are you with us? Banange, we need you here. We
Hi,
need your
yes,
voice.
finally.
Yes! Awesome. So nice to have you. So nice
I
to
know
hear
my
from you.
internet is horrible. Yes,
Don't worry, we blame
thank you.
Museveni. So it's okay. It's okay. We understand. He's jogging and taking all the internet with him. That's the problem. So nice to have you here. Thank you so much. So your film was the first one
That's
to be
cool.
screened, and there was so many responses, so many emojis of
Thank
like
you.
shock and many questions. And so I'll just jump straight into it. What is the reality of this film? Because it says it's based on a true story. Is this something that happens a lot? Is it not talked about? The idea of so
True.
I think there are two parts of this. One, the idea of queer individuals who want to have children who are struggling to figure out that, and secondly, people who are using surrogacy as a method and possibly hopefully doing it properly and kind of talking about it through, or is it happening as we say here chini ya maji in secrecy?
Okay. I'll start with the second question. The surrogacy, is it happening a lot? Not a lot that I've heard of. Mainly it's people that are adopting children from people that cannot take care of them. I think it's only once or twice I've actually heard of a surrogacy story and somebody being paid to be a surrogate and basically that whole process happening. If it is happening on the wide scale in Uganda, it's not something that's common that I'm hearing about. Then the first one about the pressure of having children and are people finding different ways of having it? Yes, I mean, like almost every African society, there are different levels of success. There is one, you finish school, two, you get married, three, you have children. For somebody to actually say, hey, okay, now she has descendants or whatever, or at least there's somebody
She's
to leave
real.
behind.
She happened.
So yes, there's always that pressure. I've actually had my aunties tell me, if you can't get a man, at least have a child type thing. So there's that pressure in terms of at least get that child one way or another. Based on, sorry, have I answered your questions?
In a way, but it's okay. Don't worry. There's plenty of time to dig even deeper. Well, one of the reasons that the film is showing is because it was curated by Kevin Machiro. So it's part of the Out Film Festival supported by the Institute. And I spoke to him earlier in the day and I asked him, is there anything he wants to bring into the conversation? And he talked about really what you've just raised right now, that there's that pressure to kind of have children, but especially among the queer community in a society that's deeply homophobic, that this path that that you present here in your film is one that many have taken, where they have duped an individual into having a child for them, and that it's been very sticky because in African culture, your child is still your child, even if the larger community doesn't embrace this child. The child is in the world, and I am curious about what questions this film has raised, especially among in your society that is as difficult, as prickly as yours. I think you told me that this film came out in 2017. So maybe talk us through the journey of
Yeah.
and the questions and possible answers it has brought up.
Sure. In terms of the idea of duping people into a relationship so as to have the children, so as to like, I think it's not so much that it starts off with somebody duping. I think it's almost from a place of they want to protect themselves. So the last thing on their minds is to hurt anybody along the way. The hurt somehow happens. Now for this film, the whole process started with, like I said, it's based on a true story, except for the part of the baby and everything that I added creative license. What happened was I was in a relationship with somebody, and then we're almost getting married, and along the way his partner actually comes out and tells me, oh, by the way, because me and his partner now became really good friends. So he came out and told me from a point of friendship, from a point of please don't be mad at us. And it's not like we're bad people, because they were willing to take care of me, willing to do everything. Literally, I was going to be the other person in their lives who wasn't really the other person. It was just almost like I was a camouflage. Like anytime they got into trouble, I was the person. So basically, yeah, so that happened. But when it happened at that time, I was not ready for the whole homosexual story or anything like that. So I panicked and I got out of there. And later now, when the topic of homosexuality or the queer community started coming up, I started doing research in terms of, I asked my relatives, my aunties, my old aunties in the village, who of course were making a lot of noise, who still make a lot of noise about having a child and everything. So I was asking them, like, okay, if I did have a child, but then that guy.
Achiro, are you with us, Bado?
But then the person happened, they'd almost be like, whoa. Yes, sorry, did I
just
break
a little
up?
bit? So just after we talked about the nosy aunties, you were talking about the pressure.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, so my question to the nosy aunties.
Oh, Achiro.
Yeah, so my question to the nosy auntie always be like, okay, since it is a child you want, if I did get a child, but then the man happened to be A, B, and C, would you be in? Is that okay? And even before I'd like finish a sentence, or it out of almost everybody's mouth was abomination. And that is what drove me to, but and yeah, so that is, like I said, the creative license I used in terms of, I just had an imagination of what if I had gone the whole 9 years and gotten pregnant and had basically gotten pregnant and then revealed who the father was, how would it go? So that is how this the surrogate.
Okay, so we have to milk everything from you before we ship, because this internet, we don't trust it. So one wonderful thing about your film is the language used. So there was a question raised before about what language, because it sounds like Luo from our side, but it's absolutely not.
Yeah, it's actually.
Oprah. Oh, it's actually okay.
It's actually, but it's a dialect of Luo. Yeah.
It's the cousins, brothers, one people. Wonderful. So tell us about the choice of language in your film, and also where you situated it, because it seems that it was stage, but there was some like modern elements. So how does that play into the telling of the story, language?
Okay. Using Acholi at the end of the day was actually an axis, this story to be English and shot in Kampala. But what happened was, like, every actor I was trying to approach was saying no because of the theme, and they were all afraid or disgusted, whatever reason. But most of them were saying no. But at that time, I had the zeal and I had a little bit of money. I didn't have that much, but I had a little bit of money to make this film, and I really wanted to make this film. It had been in my back pocket for like 3-4 years. So I went to my home village, that is Gulu, in northern Uganda, and sought out willing characters. None of these people is a professional actor or actress. I had I had one of them translate it, ask them if they were willing to be on camera, do this. At the end of the day, most of them, I'm sure, said yes, because I mean they were going to get paid. And at the end of the day, exposure, or I want to be an actress type thing. It's only one person, and who was very uncomfortable, but he did it anyway. And that was the main main character, but at that point I didn't really have a choice or whatever. So it wasn't intentional that it should be this language. At the end of the day, I'm glad that it was, because then at the end of the day, because of the facilities and the amount of money that I was using behind the film, it brought out the rawness because of where I shot it. And many of these other scenes, the village and whatever, had to be added in just to make it a little bit more authentic. So even the modern feel, it's still shot in Gulu, the whole motorcycle thing, it belongs to that lady. It was originally supposed to be a car in the city. But yes, so it kind of like fell in place, almost like accidentally, but it made it. For me, it was perfect for the film.
You know, what's also very interesting is that it also makes, you know, there's always been this debate that, you know, this idea of queerness is an imported idea. But we've learned even from the really wonderful book Chintu by Jennifer Makumbi that this was, and we know this is part of our culture. It's part of who we are. You know, it's just one of the, you know, splendor of being a human being and the complexity. So, and I think what's interesting about having your film in Acholi and set in the village and have these characters, you know, debate and understand these issues from their own reality, it makes it that much realer. It makes it feel like it's really just part of us. So accidental or not, I think it's something, and a wonderful perspective was added. And speaking of language, Oprah, there's a really wonderful sheng in your film, and even like, you know, the music at the beginning really sets the tone. And I'm interested in whether language played any part, and whether you wrote the script in sheng, or like were the actors kind of like bringing their own thing. I'm curious about language as well in your film.
Yeah, so language is very important. It had to be in Sheng. And even the, like, you know, the, like, my initial, because this wasn't my initial cast. My initial, like, I'd cast knowing that they'd have, like, with Sheng in mind. But Rita has a coastal accent. She's, the Rita who plays Sonny has a coastal accent. And because, you know, she's from Taita. So I, you know, like, I wanted it to sound as natural as possible. I wanted it to be very comfortable for the actor. So I just, you know, I just instructed Rita to speak with a natural accent and sing with Manuel. And yeah, but yeah, definitely language play was very important. The music was by a good friend of mine.
I thought so. I was like, I think I know that voice. That's so cool.
Yeah, so he has like some music that's still in a vault somewhere, and I was like, this music is too dope not to play. I mean, the you know, he rapped in duo, but he's talking about Nairobi and just the mess that is Nairobi. You know, it's like I've forgotten some of the lyrics now that we're here. But you know, it was something like, is that, you know, is that weed I smell, like the cop, like some of the lyrics are like, is that weed I smell? And you know, the guy responds, no, it's just some momentum that's banned. That's banned. You know, like, I think I really liked the music because it spoke to, it spoke about Nairobi
and
in
also
a
the
way
side of
that,
Nairobi, like very urban, as in
yeah,
urban, but also it's very interesting because it all feels like very Kenyan millennial, like, but also like a very
yeah,
specific
like,
millennial.
yeah, yeah, and it's very Islando like, you know,
It's
it
London, yes, it's
encompasses
very Islando.
Islando, yeah, very Islando. And you know, like, I mean, part of the cheating, part of the whole concept of cheating, you know, in Nairobi, hakuna mtu anajua, you know, like, so,
Hakuna
you
mtu
know,
wa mtu, no one is your own.
yeah, so it kind
They
of
say
added,
you have teammates.
yeah, exactly. So it kind of added to that. I was like, yeah, this is Nairobi, you know, so yeah, language is very important.
Super. And to shift things slightly, another thing that also kind of was like coursing through all your films is the idea of power. And nowhere was this, well, we're not said nowhere, but this was embodied very viscerally in Lydia, your film, with your pastor. My God, that guy was diabolical. Hey, 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 hey. So tell us about creating that character, casting that character, and if like what was the translation from script to screen. Tell us about that and the idea of power that he embodied as a character and also like as an actor.
Hey, okay. I don't know if I'll be able to answer that, but what thing is, shout out to Bilal Wanjao, because that man is incredible. That man could be the pastor, and then we yell cut, and then he's joking around with you. Like, he could switch from Bilal to this man. And Bilal is a Muslim man, but he knew, like, he brought it,
Proper.
and yes, power to him and everything. Proper, kabisa. But I think, like, as okay, as maybe as Kenyans, as Africans, religion is so perverse. So I feel like there were just so many pastors in my life or on television or around to kind of build up this person, because first of all, the larger than life flamboyant pastor of a fringe church, and then of course even what pastors mean to our lives. We are taught for a very, very, like, I grew up knowing that if a priest and a pastor said or did something, it came from a place of truth, it was unquestionable, and it took a very long time for that to peel away. And so, as much as, like, there are bits and pieces of the characters where he comes off as ridiculous and comical, but so do many pastors on television or in our own churches. But there's a power they wield over people because of the office and because it is Christianity and because we are afraid of God, that it becomes unquestioning. Even this whole idea of you will eat millet once a day, it's the craziest thing ever. But he can get away with it because we are afraid to
Yeah.
question if someone said, because God has said, or because God speaks
It's
through me.
unquestioning. And
Yeah.
the other thing that really that struck me is that again goes to the earlier question of how much Violet believed, and it really feeds into what you were saying just now, that it's unquestioning, because I'm imagining as he's not raising his hands there with eating the chapo. That chapo is smelling in that church. Please, people know, that chapo is in close proximity, proximity rather. But there's even the scene where he's like, taking the title deed from a hand and saying hallelujah, and he's very ominous speech at the beginning. He's very aware of what power he wields over the individuals, but also, strangely enough, it has an effect. It has actually a positive effect, and that's why he keeps going on what he's doing. What about that idea of power in that way, like being aware that you actually have something to offer and you're kind of like abusing it in a way? Is that something, and maybe you mentioned it already, talking about like the churches and the pastors that we know, do you think that's something that people are kind of aware of and are wielding in different ways? Even maybe even let's look at it like this, like mother and daughter, knowing that akimwambia you have to stay, daughter will stay, like the idea of power and questioning. And maybe Kaji is also a great representation of like pushing back against power and saying, no, I don't agree.
Mm. Yeah, I think there is that awareness, and I think it comes from, there's also that aspect of when you're head of an institution that's meant to help someone who comes off as helpless and they need you. I feel like there's sometimes the danger of helping someone is you do have power over them in that moment, and it can go either way. So yes, this is a space where he has helped, that she's not drinking, she's not promiscuous, she's not doing all these things. She has gotten better. And like, there's a podcast where I was listening to a drug rehabilitation center in the 1970s, which is where, like, a lot of drug rehabilitation centers, it's called Synanon. And a lot of the people who went there in the 1970s, it was a time when people were not helping drug addicts at all. The belief of was always, a drug addict will die a drug addict. And this one guy had said, no, I know how to fix it. And a lot of the things that he was doing, basically, they were working for him for free. So it was like rehabilitate through work. And basically he had slaves. Basically his rehabilitation said, like, he managed to amass all this wealth by taking advantage of these people. And these people had nowhere else to go. No one else was willing to treat drug addicts in the same way they were willing to treat alcoholics.
Yeah.
None of them had family. They were going to die on the streets. And in truth, when they were in this program, working from dusk to dawn, as much as it was real labor, they were being taken advantage of. He was making millions and millions of dollars tax free because he's a rehabilitation center, just like a church is
In the
tax
words of
free.
in the words of Tuali for Birds, kind of like now.
Yes, kind of like now. Thank you for that. And it's that thin line where, in the beginning, it was this space where he had actually found a way through therapy, through, channeling your energy somewhere, or of helping people. But little by little and little, it became outrightly taking advantage of someone. And I remember like listening to like the video clips from then, 1960s, 1970s. He was fully aware of what he was doing, as his bank
Well,
account kept everything. Yes. And Sinanon also
they are
became
very shameless,
registered.
Asini.
Yes, and Sinanon also registered as a church later on. It registered as a religion, and he started to speak of himself as God. So yes, kind of like now, yeah.
And I'm
So
like,
there's
no, it sounds all very familiar. But Kaje
yeah,
is not having it. Kaje at
yes,
every
Kaji is not
stage.
having.
Kaje is sassy from the first time we meet her on screen, and she stays sassy, but also she becomes quite protective of her mother, and she's got a lot of agency, which is really very, very wonderful. And we'll come back to how she pushes against all that power. Achiro, I'm really curious about you talked about casting and how the film was perceived. Let's talk about the making of your film and kind of that process, the fundraising and all the other things. You're here as writer directors, but I'm sure you also producers, maybe even you are grips. What is the stuff happening behind the scenes that supported the making of your film? Achiro, can you hear
I'm sorry,
us?
the beginning part you were breaking. Do you mind repeating the question?
No problem. I'm saying you're all here as writer directors of your films, but I'm sure you did so much more behind the
Wanjeri, would you
scenes.
kindly repeat the question?
Can you hear me, Achiro? Can you hear me now?
Mm.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello, hello. Achiro, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I'm
Yes,
asking, what is the other stuff that you did?
yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Museveni. Anyway, what are the
I can
other
hear you
things that you did?
properly.
What are the other things that you
Yeah.
did behind the scenes to support the making of your film? Not just the writing and directing and the stressing and the praying. What else did you do?
Well, literally everything. Because like I said, I didn't have that much money. And so I just got the basics, the actors, the the cameraman and the sound man. So everything else was up to me. Basically, being a runner, being the PA, basically everything else, producing whatever. And
No,
because
I
it
want
was
you to
really
name
one of my
them.
first
Name
major
them.
films that I done by myself.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I was the runner. I was the PA because I was running up and down as a production manager. Yeah, and I was also the producer, basically, at the end of the day. Because I couldn't afford to actually pay people to do these things. And then on set, when we're actually now shooting on set, when the cameraman needed a PA, I was there to help him behind the scenes. And then, okay, actually in the film, I'm actually an extra because we didn't have enough extras and
We've
couldn't
seen
pay
that.
enough people.
Shall
So
we
yes, so
rewatch
I
and,
was
and look
really
for
a
it?
hands-on person here and there and everywhere. Where the bar scene, the bar scene. I'm the lady behind on her phone. Yeah, because there was so much space and there was
Aha!
nobody to fill it. So basically, I'm right there next to the main act. I got my 2 minutes of fame. Yeah.
Perfect. You were authentic. You were wonderful. You delivered. You had no lines, but we got it. So the reason why I ask this is because we are independent filmmakers. We are everywhere. We are in the DNA of this film, right from the time we conceive it in our minds and to the making of it. And I think it's really important to name these things because Hollywood tells us different. You read the credits, and it's really wonderful that you can, specialize. But the reality for us is that we do all of that, and that's kind of like what goes into birthing a film. And I just wanted to acknowledge that the hard work that everybody puts in, and it's good to know that you are even in the movie. Wonderful, Oprah. I know for a fact that you learned and you made VFX, like all the graphics we're seeing on the screen are you. What else did you do behind the scenes to make this film happen?
Okay, I didn't do the graphics.
Oh, okay. Oops.
That's the one. But I think we were maybe 5 crew members. And so there's a camera assist, and there's an assistant, like an AD, and the sound guy. So I don't know, like it was just anything in between that I can't even remember because it was everything in between. But the one that I definitely remember was cooking while directing, cooking lunch for, and
okay, were you like actually like action and then
we're shooting in the bedsitter, so it's still set. I'm shooting up like I'm cooking on set. On So it was like, okay, cook this, hide it, shoot, and I think actually we had a chance to eat because we had a blackout. And that's so we had a blackout, so we couldn't, of course, light the set. But then I could cook and all these things, and switch back to okay, you're there, I'm directing, let's go on. And I guess after I was, the editing, I did the editing, I did the color. So like somebody started off with the color, but then technical problems, I had to finish off the color side of things. So yeah, it was just like it was so much that you don't even remember the little things because you're making the movie.
You're just happy a film exists. What about you, Lydia? Yeah. What are the other things you were doing behind the scenes?
We lost the camera a few days too. But wait, let me first shout out to Gakuru, who is an amazing co-producer through thick and thin. The casting director for this film. I lost the original Kaje and the original Violet, I think 2 days before the table read. And I called Sakina Mildred Birichi during her honeymoon to beg for her to come back.
Yeah, like come back and
be in my film. Then little Kaje, Tasha Milan, is the amazing smart daughter of my friend Kathy Wamaitha, and she came on board to save me. There are several things, like I don't know. I feel like I blocked out the trauma.
It happens. It's real, baby. It actually happens.
What? Actually, I thought I would break. So there are many things, harrowing things that I didn't think I could come back from.
Well, you're here. So let's do 2 quick things because now we've run out of time. As in, like time flies when you're having fun. So let me know what one thing you learned and you've applied in your next project, or rather you applied in the project that came after, or you intend to do in your next coming project. We can start with Lydia, if you're, or whoever wants to jump in. Who is clear, crystal clear on what has come through for them. I see Achiro has. Let's hear from Achiro. Let's hear from our sister. Yes, Achiro. What did you learn and what did you apply? Or rather, where did you apply it? What do you intend to apply it? I feel like I'm just wasting our time repeating the question. If anybody has a response, you may begin. Oprah, do you have something to say?
Yeah, so I think...
Was your question what it is we learned from the previous project?
Yes, and that you want to apply. Oh, we lost her at the end. Oh, what a shame. I hope she can come back into the closing remarks. But Oprah, you can begin in the meantime.
Yeah, so I think 2 things I learned. Number one, like preparation. Oh, maybe it's one thing actually. It's just preparation on steroids. Like everything, everything that could go wrong will go wrong. And if you're prepared to the ultimate, then you at least like you have, like you're sober enough to kind of fight the fires as they come along. Because I think I also had the same thing as Lydia. I literally cast and that's also thanks to Ivy in part, like cast.
Hey, Ivy, the MVP.
Yes, I cast my last two. I cast them. I think on the day before,
Wow.
and I had to call. Yeah, and so that was crazy. I didn't even Manuel, who's the guy, and I begged. I was like, because I knew Jerita from before, but I had to ask them to come sleep in my house, and we just talked through the script. So the three of us were in the bed like, just talking through the script. I think he slept at like midnight or something. And I'm really
Is that
glad
what
we
you learned?
what?
Is that the thing you learned? Is that the thing you learned that you sit the actors and
Preparation.
talk to them?
Preparation. Like,
Aha, preparation. Okay.
like, because even like the fact that we went on set the next day, we weren't starting to figure out all chemistry or lines or words. It was very easy for them to get into that because we kind of ran it through the night before, even though we were exhausted when we were doing it. But I think just running through it really helped.
Important. Super. Achiro, what did you learn and how did you apply it to your next project? Achiro, darling, can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Like in the pre-production of the film, because for this particular film, for the Surrogate, it was literally done in 3 days. Yes, I can hear you.
Super.
Can you guys
Yes,
hear me?
yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, so I was saying it was literally done in 3 days. First day was casting the film and doing the read through and practicing whatever. The second day was shooting this film from the beginning to end, and the third day was editing. So literally 3 days. But the pressure that went in, and even the end result, the product that came out, I think if I learned that if I'd spent more time in it, literally like milked it right from the development stage to the very end, money or no money, I think it would have made an even bigger impact because it would have been a bigger story and a better short way. Because I mean, we didn't even give these amateur actors time to practice or anything. So that is really what I have learned.
Wow.
Just spend more time in the development phase.
Well, good job given all the pressures in making this film. Good job. And Lydia, closing remarks. Tell us, what did you learn and where did you apply it?
So me, I learned everything. This was the first set for fiction that I had ever been on. Documentary does not have gaffers, all these big men and their big lights. Me, when I walked in the first day, I wanted to leave. I was shorter than all of my cast and crew, and I was standing there wondering, what's my
Even Kaji is
do I
showing.
have to tell these people? Even Kaji, me and Kaji were the same height. I'm the same height as an
Same
11-year-old.
was
So I
up.
was looking up at them like, so I am the director of the film. So I learned everything. I learned what this person does, what that person does, all these people. But yes, I think Achiro and Oprah have touched on it. Preparation. I am now preparing for a film that I hope COVID will allow me to film in January. My next short film called Sungura, and I've spent, a lot of this time just learning about. I borrowed a book from the Film Commission. They have a nice library on shots, on basically on how shots work. Why do people why do you go from a wide to a medium to a close up? What do these shots mean? These things like that, because that's something that I've struggled with, and really looking at my script and looking at where those things can be placed, although which is very dangerous because you've not even done a rec. The other thing is sometimes when you're the writer, you will write things KJ and Violet entered the submarine and left. I think going on a set, I always write with the set in mind. I write with, I know the cost of everything, of every person that I am putting down is a cost. It is trouble that I am adding for myself. And all these things, and also kind of learning that all this that I'm writing, it's wonderful and it's great, but it may not necessarily happen in reality. Whatever needs to happen on that day.
Within particular constraints. Like you have to make it work.
If circumstances.
Lydia, can you hear me? Can you hear me? I think we lost you, kiddo.
Yes, now I can hear you. We like all three of it. It's happening
my
again.
goodness.
Losing
I'm so
of
sorry.
me.
I've lost you kidogo tu hapo towards the end.
But it's
But
okay.
I think those are really good points. And again, all of you, through the difficult circumstances, you made really fantastic films that resonated with not only myself, but all the viewers and all the mini screenings you've had regionally in the world. We're so proud of all the work that you've done. Thank you so much for your time, filmmakers. It's difficult to work across social media tracks and the realities of Kenyan Wi-Fi. Thank you to the audience who've given time again now and in the future. Hi guys, in the future. I've been your host, Wanjeri Gakuru of Rogue Film Society, and have a great evening, everyone. Bye.